So let's move on to talk about the economy, which is
terrible.
and is going to be absolutely, I think, the number one issue
Yep.
of this campaign. Now, we know it's been out there. If people don't know, governors do not create jobs.
Thank you. They can create state jobs, which are not
Right.
helpful in this environment.
What will you do to stimulate economic growth in the state?
3 things. One of the reasons that private investment doesn't find its way here very often is because we have an 8.5% income tax top marginal rate and an 8.5% capital gains tax. That means if you're sitting in a Manhattan bank, Deutsche Bank or Moody's, one of those banks with the fancy names, and you're making a decision on behalf of a group of investors about whether to invest in an opportunity here in Maine, you're looking at an 8.5% penalty against your profits because of the Maine income tax and the capital gains tax. They don't see that same rate in other states. They see 5% or 6%. So we have to bring that rate down. That's the reason I voted for this tax reform bill that's going to be on the ballot in June. It brought, whatever its faults, that bill succeeded in bringing down the capital gains rate to 6.5%, or in some cases 6.85%. But in any case, a major reduction. That is worth much more than all of these little funny systems that we keep creating, the betters and the TIFs and e-TIFs and all of those acronymic little monsters that we've created in order to attract new business to Maine. All you need to do is to cut that top rate and you will attract new business by that means alone. Secondly, we do need to change the regulatory environment so that we get a rapid turnaround on applications. As somebody once said, I didn't mind when they told me no so much, but they could have told me $1 million earlier. So our regulatory environment, it doesn't need to be sacrificed, but it needs to be streamlined. And the third thing is they need to pass my fund of funds bill. I wrote this bill myself on my dining room table. It took me 6 days. And I borrowed it heavily from about a dozen other states that have done the same thing. But it's a system where you have a state-backed venture capital, an array of venture capital funds that are in the aggregate backed by a state guarantee. But the diversity of the investment portfolio is so broad that there's relatively little risk to the state. But on the other hand, you open up the opportunity for investing millions and millions and millions of dollars in projects, in businesses that will have a connection to the state of Maine. Either a business that will use technology that's being developed up to the University of Maine, or a business that will produce some jobs in Maine, or a business that will connect to the Maine boat building business, but a connection. And the problem we have in Maine is that we have lots of little grants out there for $10,000 or $20,000 through MTI and these other state-sponsored entities that will give you a little bit of money for your bright little idea. But then when you want to scale up and you need a couple of $1 million to start thinking about a manufacturing plant or buying the computers necessary to introduce a piece of ingenious software to the rest of the world, all of that, you don't find $1 or $2 or $3 million available in Maine. You have to go to California to get it, or Route 128, or down in North Carolina. And so people move away. They take the little money we gave them to start up their idea, and they say, thank you very much, and a year later they're gone to find the capital. We need to bring the capital home to Maine, and until we start doing that, we're going to continue to suffer our young people leaving, old folks, our population getting older and older, and fewer good ideas coming to